Today we're going to be talking indoor enterprise Wi-Fi. I have a whole bunch of products here, but the main focus of this is going to be the new Cambium XV3 radio, which is right here. Thought it'd be kind of interesting to show you the development of where they started and where they're at right now and the new products and where they're going to, and show you a little bit about the switches and how all this ecosystem is going to be working together. Main focus is the XV3, so what makes this radio better, different than previous iterations of the Cambium wireless Wi-Fi product. This is an 8x8 radio, and it has 5 radios built into it. So what does that mean? It's got a dedicated radio for listening, which is something that's pretty new. It's going to take that radio and it's going to actively listen to the noise floor of everything around you and dynamically be changing channels, and also using their cloud controller or an on-premise controller be able to have all of the access points be controlled to the same head end. So it's going to be able to adjust power, able to adjust channels to make sure that it's able to do load balancing between access points and between radios in itself on the fly dynamically. The whole point of this is the next radio we're going to get into is there's 2 5 gigahertz radios, and those are software defined, so it can be combined together as a single 8x8. Application will be super dense, a lot of 5 gigahertz devices hammering this thing hard, communicating to each other from the singular access point, not necessarily out to the outside internet, but internal devices that are transmitting a lot of data in between each other. And then it also has the 2.4 gigahertz radio built into it, and you could have the 2 5 gigahertz radios be combined for the 8x8, or they can be 2 independent 4x4 radios, so completely software defined and scalable. So when we're talking Wi-Fi standards, we'll talk about the old standard, which is Wi-Fi 5, which is going to be this radio here, and how does that compare with Wi-Fi 6? Is now the time to make the jump to going to the next iteration? Are you ready for a network refresh? I heard about Wi-Fi 6E on the horizon, and there's some starting to talk about Wi-Fi 7. So one of the things I want to talk about a little bit is why this is a great time for a network refresh, and what does that mean for you? Is this the best time to spend the money? For most applications, Wi-Fi 6 is going to perform significantly better than you'd see with Wi-Fi 5. There is going to be about, I'd say, a 40% increase in performance when you compare just apples to apples. If you had an identical Wi-Fi 5 product to Wi-Fi 6, the AX chipset is able to more efficiently pass data and more efficiently handle those packets. So what makes this the right time, and why should I maybe make the jump now to Wi-Fi 6 instead of waiting for Wi-Fi 6E? One of the big things is that there's been a series of standards of Wi-Fi through the years. So you got A, B, G, N, AC Wave 1, AC Wave 2. And so then beyond AC Wave 2 is where we're at now, which is the AX chipset. Why do I think this is the right time? Because AC was primarily focused on 5 gigahertz, and 5 gigahertz is a higher frequency than all the previous standards frequencies being in 2.4 gigahertz. So since the N chipset came out, we'll call it 8-9 years ago, there hadn't been much advancement in the 2.4 gigahertz, and that's a primary way that most of our devices are connecting. The 5 gigahertz is there, and it's nice and it connects, but because it's a higher frequency, you have to be closer to the device, and oftentimes that's not really able to be done. And so a lot of our network traffic ends up going over those 2.4 gigahertz frequencies. And so we've got an 8-year-old chipset or so that hasn't been updated on 2.4. So we're actually making a big jump from an N-based chipset in 2.4 to all the way up to the AX chipset. You're going to get better range, you're going to get better performance, the modulation levels are better, and overall you're going to see a lot better of a user experience when it comes to AX versus the AC Wave 2 and definitely way better than the original AC or N-based chipset equipment. Why do I think that now is the time to make the jump and do a network refresh as opposed to waiting for Wi-Fi 6E? 6E is in the 6 gigahertz band, and so with the 6 gigahertz band, you're talking about an even higher frequency. The FCC hasn't quite ironed out what they're going to be doing on that yet. There's going to be about 1200 megahertz for spectrum in that frequency, but when we're talking about it being a higher frequency, it's not going to go through as many walls, and it's not going to quite propagate as well as the lower frequencies in 2.4 and even 5 gigahertz, which we have on these today. So why would you want to wait for 6E if you have a super, super dense environment and all of your end user devices have that 6 gigahertz E chipset in it? That would maybe make sense. But in my opinion, the FCC hasn't really ironed out exactly how this is going to be in the 6 gigahertz band. So you're talking years down the road until you have an adoption for that E-based standard. And it's going to take even longer for devices to be really out in the general public from the end user level. So today you've got this product that does this amazing jump from the previous generation, and the 6 gigahertz product honestly isn't going to have that big of a jump in performance. It's going to have a big jump in price because there's going to have to be different, more expensive chipsets in it. So that's why I think that now is the time. This is a great product to consider, and get into a little bit more about how this competes with other products on its individual market. The list price of this, when I was kind of looking at some data recently, was around $1,095. It heavily competes with Aruba, Meraki, and Ruckus. The Aruba access point was $2,000, the Meraki was $1,850, and the Ruckus was $1,695. So you got a lot lower cost. Chipsets are commoditized, so they're using a similar chipset in these. What differentiates this versus other products in the market and is going to always be the software in it. So the way that they have it tied into a all cloud-based or on-premises based programming, and how you're going to control it is the usability of the device. And then the other factor that you're going to have to talk about are the antennas. Cambium invests a lot in antennas. Their devices tend to propagate better versus the competition, given the same form factor. And so we're looking at a lower capex upfront on the actual physical hardware, and a lower reoccurring operational expenditures because you're not having to install as many of these. So you should be able to real world data when you're deploying these. You should expect to deploy about 2/3 the amount of access points as you would with the competitive product on the market. Going to next go through a little bit about some testing of this device. We're going to talk about the onboarding process, how it integrates with the switches, and do a little bit of field testing. And we'll get you some results on how this actually performs real world. Through the CN Maestro cloud platform onboarding of the XV3 radio really quick here. So first step is we're going to want to claim this device, put in the serial number, and see that it's been successful. I can close that out now at this point. First step is we're going to give it a basic name. We'll call it XV3 demo, and location, we'll put it at this location here. Software update, we're not going to really focus on that right now. And then the AP group we'll put it in, so we'll put it in the Cambium demo group. Once that's all done, we'll go ahead and click save here. And right now it's waiting for the device to call home, but we've sent all of that in. I'm going to go ahead and approve it for when it does get back to us. For the time being, while we're waiting for that, we can kind of go through a little bit here and show you the portal. Everything on a single dashboard, so you can manage these. And as you click through on the system tab, it kind of gets a little more granular into each of the individual networks you have. You can see all your devices, your AP groups. This is what you're going to set up for, you have a site and you want to have all of the groups at that site have the same configuration. you would do that here. Switching groups, when and if you decide to utilize their switches, you can have that, and the switches can push down the profiles to access points and recognize them as well. Wireless LANs, it's separate than AP groups because a lot of people want to have multiple wireless LANs per AP group, so it gives you a little bit of flexibility to do that. We have our general sites here. I've created 3 just kind of as a demonstration. And then onboarding tab is the one we just went through here a minute ago. And then you could also do a guest access portal. This is something that you're going to want to do if you are using this for municipality or even schools. You can do a guest access through here and have it do remote login, or you can have it be authenticated through a third-party device. So you don't necessarily have to use their guest access portal, but you can, and it's an option. And then the next section here will be if you want to add multi-users, you can have different levels of permissions per user. All right, our device is called home and pulled down its configuration file. You can see the device here, get all the configuration on the XV3, and it'll automatically pull the default profiles that we had pulled, and you can see a little more, get a little more granular control. And if you do want to log into the individual device, you can still do that to control the individual radios, whether it's in 8x8 or 4x4 mode. And in summary, I think this radio is a hit. I did a little bit of testing around the area, and I have a 5 access point mesh system right now, and this was able to provide equal access to that with this singular unit. So it was really impressive, and I think that there's a really strong value proposition at the price point, and for enterprise, it'll be able to handle that dense load.